First, let me welcome Canadian Ambassador to Israel, Deborah Lyons. It's so great to see you here. I hope you agree with me. She's one of the two best ambassadors to the State of Israel. You agree with me? Yeah. My friend Richard Sandler, the outgoing chair of the JFNA Board of Trustees, Mr. Mark Wilf, the incoming chair of the Board of Trustees, the chairs of the GA, Donna Azrieli and Marius Nacht, my friend and fellow rabbi's son, Jerry Silverman, welcome. My wife, Tammy, who is just returning, she returned last night from the birthday party of our eldest granddaughter in New York, welcome. And fellow supporters of Israel, friends, distinguished guests, welcome again. Thank you so much for having me. The theme of the conference, as I see here, is Let's Talk. It's a great theme. Congratulations on a great theme. And while you don't say about what, I'm going to presume, I think probably accurately, that it's about Israel-diaspora relations. And it's a great topic. There are few things I care about more or that I want to talk about more than that subject. So if this is the dialogue that you are seeking to encourage, you've got the right guy. Unfortunately, for the next 10 minutes or so, this is going to be more an exercise in let me talk rather than let's talk. But I want you to rest assured that this is a conversation I want to continue with you, with all of you, and I want to listen to you as much as I talk. Most people in diplomacy don't really want to be brutally honest. I'm a little bit different. Some people say that makes me undiplomatic. Some people says it makes me a good diplomat. But this is who I am, and I do believe in confronting issues and addressing them head on. So I think the issue that we're all struggling with is whether or not Israel and the diaspora are somehow drifting apart. And if they are, how do we change the trajectory? So before addressing this point, I want to borrow a little bit from the Passover Haggadah, from the parable of the four sons. We all know the story. There's four sons that are mentioned in the Haggadah: a wise son, a wicked son, a simple son, and a son who's not even able to ask the question. Let's assume we all fall into the first category. My goal is certainly not to classify anybody differently. Let's assume we're all wise. That's not really my point. My point is that the Haggadah qualitatively prioritizes four categories of Jews. The last son, the apathetic son, if you will, is the one who is deserving of the most criticism. He is the one ranked lowest in terms of the quality of the four. The apathetic son is ranked 2 levels below even the wicked son. It is the lowest rung of Jewish observance, and it's an important lesson for all of us. Apathy is really our enemy, not disagreement. I'll bet that there are people in this room who disagree with me on Israeli policy. I'm an unapologetic right-wing defender of Israel. I'm a security hawk. That's who I am. And to those of you who think differently than me, I will tell you my answer is not, you're wrong, and my answer is not, who cares what you think? Just the opposite. My response to every one of you who disagrees with me is, I value your thinking, I respect your views, and most importantly, I'm really grateful that you care enough to form an opinion on this incredibly important subject, and we can now have a conversation. Everybody in this room is part of the solution. As Woody Allen famously said, 80% of life is just showing up. And by being here, by showing up, you're showing how much you care. You're voting with your feet against apathy, and I thank you for that. So where apathy is growing in the diaspora, we have a real problem. It's a problem of outreach, a problem of education, a problem of funding. It requires a concerted, multi-layered effort to inculcate in unaffiliated Jews the wonders of Judaism and the wonders of the State of Israel. Programs are out there that serve these goals. We need to have more, and we need to all support them. But where disagreements are growing, not apathy, but where disagreements are going, we have a different problem, and one which I would humbly suggest is easier to solve, because we're dealing with people who already care. Disagreements are things we can solve through discussion, with love, with respect, not just pretending to care, not just pretending to listen, but to really working hard to work through these issues. But while we're trying to solve all these issues, I would suggest to you, we can't drop the ball on combating apathy. Apathy and disagreements are related issues, but they're very discrete. I would tell you by analogy, a mother and father can fight with each other, but they still have to support the kids. And addressing apathy really is supporting the kids. Let me talk to you a minute about disagreements between Israel and the diaspora. Here's the bad news. They are never, ever, ever going to go away. If our goal is to end those disagreements, I think we've got better things to do. It's just not possible given the extraordinary differences of perspectives, all legitimate, that we necessarily have by being in these two different worlds. To paraphrase the famous saying, Israel is from Mars and the diaspora is from Venus. But as they also sometimes say about the original subjects of that phrase, and to offer some French in honor of the Canadians, viva la différence. So I just want to, we all know this, but just to refocus everyone, there are just two big differences, and there are many, many more, but two kind of overwhelming differences between the United States and Canada on the one end and Israel on the other. The first thing, which I know drives a lot of the conflict, is Israel just doesn't have a First Amendment. There is no separation of church and state in Israel. We in the United States do. Our founding fathers' greatest achievement may have been the First Amendment. In the United States, as robust as our democratic process may be, we don't vote on religious matters. We don't vote on religious authorities. In Israel, religion and politics, for better or worse, are intertwined. Is that a good system? Is it a bad system? I mean, we can debate, but it's the system. It's the way the Israelis have chosen to govern themselves. It creates a different dynamic in terms of religious observance. It's tied into politics. It's tied into votes. It's tied into the democracy. It's just something we have to understand, and we have to work through it. The second point, which is, again, obvious to everyone, Israel has formidable enemies on its borders and within its borders. While the United States is, of course, exposed to terrorist threats, we have the luxury of being bordered by Canada to the north, Mexico to the south, the Atlantic to the east, the Pacific to the west. Israel fights a war on its borders maybe every decade, maybe more often. We don't, fortunately. Israeli parents send their children off to war. Most of us, fortunately, not all of us, but most of us don't. Now, Israel does this incredible job of normalizing life here, better than I think anybody could ever expect a country to do. You come to Israel and you just, unless you have my job, or unless you're in the military, you're in security, you just don't have to pay attention. You don't have to pay attention to the threats because of what Israel does to protect its citizens, to protect tourists, and to keep a normal life. But it's there, and it's always going to be there. And I believe that every American Jew and every Israeli values human rights and social justice, every single one of them. But those values, human rights or social justice, in every society are always balanced against maintaining peace and security. And that balancing act is different for every country. It's different between the United States and Israel, fundamentally because the threats are different. So I make these 2 points, and you may be listening to me and saying that perhaps I'm suggesting that we in the diaspora need to give Israel a little bit more of a break. And maybe there's some truth to that. Maybe that's part of what I'm saying. But the converse is also true, and every bit as much true. Israel needs to do more for the diaspora. Israel is no longer the little brother in the relationship. Israel is now, it's the big brother. Israel is the largest Jewish community in the world. That wasn't true, I don't think that was true 5 years ago, but Israel is now the largest Jewish community in the world. It is a first world economy. It has a first world quality of life. It's a world leader in cybersecurity, artificial intelligence, all kinds of cutting-edge technologies. It's got a GDP per capita that puts it right up there with all the other major Western nations. Unlike Israel, diaspora Jewry isn't reaffirming its Judaism every day by living in a Jewish state. Most are not immersed in Jewish study. No one's singing Haktikva every day. In the diaspora, you can't reaffirm your Jewishness just by showing up. The diaspora needs Israel to help world Jewry maintain its connectivity to Judaism. And Israel needs, and to a certain extent it does, but it could do more, Israel needs to accept, to embrace, and to discharge that responsibility as an Israeli national imperative, even though those efforts extend well beyond its borders. In the end, there is far more that unites us than divides us. And it's the unifying facts that, of course, we need to rely upon and focus upon to maintain our critical unity. What do we agree upon? We all agree Israel is a miracle. It's a literal and figurative oasis of democracy and tolerance in a region which has far too little of either. It's the culmination of a 2,000-year-old exile, the longest exile of any people in history, whereby the prayers of our forefathers for the return to Zion were answered. It's the land of our biblical history. It's the land of our national history. Israel makes the world a better place in so many ways. You know this better than me. Over the last 3 days, you've seen countless examples, including what we just saw on the stage, which I'm still moved by, still thinking about. All the wonderful things that Israel does to make the world a better place. Israel even keeps us safe on our home front. Israel keeps Americans safe, and it keeps Canadians safe through military intelligence and cooperation. And of course, Israel is the only place in the world that guarantees a safe haven for Jews anywhere who are at risk. We all know these facts are true. That's why we're here. That's why there is a critical role for every one of us to play in the ongoing miraculous story of Jewish history. And that's why we will continue to be here and do all we can to strengthen the bonds between the country of our citizenship and this small nation of Israel that we value and we love so much. 3,000 years ago, King David said in Psalm 128, Yivarechacha Hashem mitzion u'ebetuv Yerushalayim. May the Lord bless you out of Zion, and may you see the good in Jerusalem. It's an odd phrase, to see the good in Jerusalem. King David didn't say, may Jerusalem be safe, may Jerusalem be prosperous, may Jerusalem be blessed. He said, may you see the good. What was he saying? He was making a profound point. Just because something is there, just because it's in front of you, just because it's true, just because it's beautiful, that doesn't necessarily mean that you will see it. Seeing may be believing, but seeing is not just biological. And there's, interestingly enough, recent tests have shown that to be true. What's the way that we measure vision? Most of us, we look at an eye chart. So studies have shown, if you look at an eye chart with the big letters on top and the small letters on the bottom, as you start going down the list, because you know it's going to get harder as you go down the list, you condition yourself to recognize that there's more difficulty and condition yourself to failure. When you flip the eye chart upside down and you start with the smaller letters and you haven't conditioned yourself to fail, studies have shown that you see better quality, smaller letters up front. So this point, King David was very profound in realizing this 3,000 years ago. How we condition ourselves, how we condition our thoughts affects very much the way we see. And so let me finish by offering you this blessing. May all of us condition ourselves to see more clearly, to open our eyes, our hearts, and our minds, to appreciate and understand the heartfelt and sincere beliefs of all who care about the world Jewish community and the state of Israel. And may this lead to all of us fulfilling the blessing of King David. Ur'ei betuv Yerushalayim. May we all literally and figuratively see the good in Jerusalem. Thank you very much.